Stop. I can't take it anymore.
Oh, I do the live ones too. Yes, I know. I saw your act in the theater. You're really quite good. Quite a certain harmful habit.
Stop it now, I mean it.
Hello and welcome back. We are breaking up with RBS. This is episode number 82, and I am Tawny Santabria.
And I am JDK Winnikin. We are back to debunk the junk, those BS stories that we add to our emotional states that just make things worse. Don't help us out. Mm-hmm. And disconnect us from ourselves, from others, from lots of things.
They wreak a lot of havoc.
They do. Mm-hmm. They do. So every week we come here to talk about some element of those BS stories in some way, shape, or form. And for a handful of weeks, we've been doing what we're calling our Flinging the Poo series, which is kind of fun. Those things around there. So if you are joining us live this morning, good morning. If you are joining us as a podcast, thank you so much for subscribing and for leaving us a review and sharing with people that you think would be interested. And remember, you can get this wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow our YouTube channel to get video of these episodes at Breaking Up with RBS. You also can join our Facebook group of the same name. Tawny's got her 6-week self-mastery course at unperfectyourself.com, where you can apply all of these concepts over 6 weeks in the context of your own life. And every second Saturday of the month, we host a free Zoom workshop to introduce you to some of the presencing techniques that we do and answer any questions that you may have. And the information for that is available at our Facebook group more than anything else. So we got a lot of stuff out there for people to explore in terms of breaking up with their BS.
We sure do.
Awesome.
Yeah. All
right. So we've been flinging the poo around for a lot of weeks now.
We have.
Last week we talked about I don't have enough time.
Mm-hmm.
So where do you want to go this week? There's always poo to fling around.
There is always poo, but I'm noticing that you're advertising that you are okay.
Talk about my t-shirt.
So I'm curious about what we need to know around that. I think it's probably pretty important.
Okay, well, just if you're not watching the video feed, you can't see it, but my t-shirt has written across it, it's almost like a meme, kind of meme design. It says, I'm broken, but then the I'm and the okay and broken are in red. So it says, I'm okay.
So you can really see the I'm okay.
And I want everybody to know.
You want everybody to know you're okay.
I don't know. I didn't think about it.
Right. Okay.
I liked the t-shirt and it was on sale. One of those things online. It's like, we're closing our store.
They got you.
They
got you. Like,
like
what?
$7. It was like $7. And so I got it. I'm like, oh, okay, that'd be fun to have.
Right.
And then, of course, it took like 6 weeks to get here because it was coming from like the depths of China somewhere.
Yeah.
But nevertheless.
Well, now you have a shirt that can tell people an important thing, right? So that's good.
Nothing to see here except my shirt. I didn't think about it that way, but yeah,
Right.
it might be some truth to that.
Yeah. Well,
anyway.
good for you. Okay.
So yeah, well, what I liked about it was this notion that you and I have talked about before. I'm broken. When really we can be as okay as obviously other than like legitimate emergency experiences.
Sure.
We can be more okay than we think, even if we're in a position where we feel broken. Mm-hmm. There's something about that has always resonated with me, right? The ability of our bodies to really help us be okay. We don't just have to figure it out in our brain. We can actually connect with it that way. So that was the motivation. So
got it.
Okay, the shirt.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay.
It wasn't, at least consciously, to advertise to everybody that I'm okay. I need to spend some time thinking about that. To spend some time sitting with that.
Well,
breathe into
it works though. I mean, okay. So this story of the flip side of I'm okay, this story of your shirt of I'm broken. I've heard that from people over the years, just sort of like that statement of I'm broken.
Yeah, me too.
That is so heavy and weighted and false.
Is that the right word?
Yeah, I would say false. Let's just call it false.
Okay.
Right? Because
let's dig into that. Because I hear it a lot too.
Yeah.
I hear it sometimes, as so many of the things sometimes that we talk about, they sometimes are almost used as like this throwaway statement of fact. Like it's just a given.
Right.
I'm broken or I'm damaged or things like that. And I know what people, I think I know what people mean when they say that they're hurt or
Sure.
they've got scars or something unresolved, that type of thing. But broken is very stark.
It's heavy. It's heavy, and I think that it carries. Of course, it's heavy. It carries a lot of weight. And again, if we go back to sort of like the brain, sort of believing what we say over and over and over
Yeah.
again,
Mhm.
then it's pretty limiting and not good for us. Not good for the brain to hear
Mm-hmm.
I'm broken.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well, if you think of the messaging, when things are broken, what do you normally do with them? One, you might throw them out.
Mm-hmm.
And if you try to fix them, you're not going to be as confident in it after you fix it. You're going to kind of be wondering, when's it going to break again?
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
And when we're talking about our lives, it's not like we can just throw one out and get a new one,
Mm-hmm.
right? In terms of our own existence or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, to me, when I hear it, it does produce for me a reaction of, ooh,
Yeah.
really taking yourself out of the game if we really feel that you're broken, or putting yourself in a corner. I'm not sure what the right analogy is, but it is really robbing us of our own agency, it seems to me.
And I think about what just came to me was when we think about something that's growing, we don't use the word broken, right? I don't look at my plants and go, well, there's a broken one.
That's a broken one.
I don't use that word.
Oh,
Right? We don't even talk about trees as being broken.
Tawny, we're 7 minutes in. We're not ready for the mic drop yet.
Oh, shoot. No, but
That's true.
isn't it strange that we use
Oh,
it
we
for
call
ourselves?
ourselves a thing.
Yeah.
That's calling ourselves a thing, and shaped and
like
formed.
a TV or something.
Like a TV, like an object that doesn't change.
Yeah.
And that can only do one function.
Right, like a table,
Ew.
right? Like the dryer. What?
Broken.
We are
I don't dry
not.
things.
We are not a dryer.
We are not a dryer. That's going to be my next T-shirt. I am not a dryer.
Well, that'll be helpful for people too.
Advertising that. I'm not a dryer.
That'll clear things up.
Oh, that's a great
Yeah.
point. Because that turns us into a thing, not a living, well, it turns us into an object,
Right.
not a living, growing,
And if we're alive, we are growing.
and moving and changing.
We're energy. Yeah.
But sit with that for a minute. Breathe into that.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. Did that just come to you, or did you just like sling that out of your quiver of experience? that you have on your back?
Well, I'm sure I think it's both, right? Because I've struggled with the broken term to describe ourselves as human beings for a really, really long time, and that thing just came up today. As far as like us not being a dryer, like I hadn't connected those two things before, but that seems pretty
The
clear.
growing thing, yeah. Well, yeah, because I appreciate that, because I've had a couple of clients just kind of say that in passing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the problem is I'm broken. It's like, when did that happen?
Right. Let's restory.
Wow,
Let's
let's-
use some different terms. Right.
Yeah.
So we want to be really careful.
When
about-
did you become a inanimate object
Right.
that needs to be utilized by something else, powered by something else, utilized by somebody else?
Yeah.
Wow. This just goes on and on and on,
Mhm.
because an
The
object is for
implications, yes.
usage,
Mm-hmm.
and that you only have one or a set amount of functions. And when you are done with those, you're disposable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So growing instead.
growing.
So then growing would be, then it's a whole different set of questions,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Because if something's growing, you have questions about how, what's the soil like? How well is it being fed?
Mm-hmm.
How healthy is it? What are the outside factors? What are the inside factors?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a lot of variables going on here
There
as
are.
we're growing. Yes.
There are. And if we pick like trees, for example, questions about root strength, water source,
Mhm.
soil, amount of sunlight,
Mm-hmm. Environment around. Like
environment around.
who are the other trees?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. See, because then not only do I like that a lot better, but if we look at ourselves that way, then we're asking a whole lot of different questions about why we are not feeling, because that's what I'm broken is. I don't feel good. I don't feel the way I want to be. I always sense that there's some sense of hopelessness in there, or frustration, or fear that things won't change, resignation.
All human emotions.
All very much human emotions, which, of course, ironically, runs against the idea of being broken.
Right.
Because a broken human being wouldn't be feeling emotions.
Human emotions. Yeah.
Human emotions.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're feeling, that's the good news, everybody. If you're feeling sad, resigned, guess what? You're a functioning human. You're not broken.
Yeah. We just don't want those stories telling us
Yes.
what our human emotions mean about us, right? We don't want to feed that in such a way that takes us outside of ourselves.
Right. It gives us an assignment of some element of ourselves that is just made up. You know, we've used the example on the show before that if you've gone through a breakup and you're feeling sad, frustrated, lonely, those are all understandable, right? Very legitimate. Once you start saying that means I'm unlovable, I'll never meet the right person, or I always make mistakes, that's the BS story.
Yes.
That's the problem, not the emotions itself. So, and I'm broken would be one of those. That's why I can't be in, my relationships don't work because I'm broken.
Yes.
Right. And I've asked the question, well, what was the other person?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And that's the part. We grab onto a story like that, and it's usually a past experience,
Yes.
right? And so then when we say, for example, okay, so we've got this past experience that we've sort of come up with a story around, I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, nobody will ever love me again, I'm lonely forever, and, I'm broken. All of those stories that come into play. We wake up in the morning and we start with that story. When we woke up that morning, we were in a completely different space and time. But then we added the story. Took us into the past. We made the past the present. And then we set out on our day after having been being informed by ourselves that we got something going on that we would rather not.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the way it works when we have these stories. We think ourselves into a space.
Yeah.
A feeling state, an emotional state, and we hold on to that. And then we keep going back to it. It's all past stuff. It's not about right here in the moment. You just woke up.
Correct.
Right? So we want to be able to discern, okay, what was past, what's present, one, right? But those stories that aren't to our benefit, right? Or that keep those feelings around that then support the stories in any particular moment, we're setting ourselves up.
Yeah.
For what?
For reinforcing those stories to begin with.
And the state of affairs,
Yep.
right? That we're putting in motion, not allowing any other light or possibility to come in that might actually not support the stories. How wonderful would that be?
Yeah, exactly. And what can happen, and I experience this, and I see clients that experience this, is then the future becomes more and more frightening. Because you can tell yourself a story, it's always going to be this way. And if you're telling yourself you're broken, that's sort of what you're acceding to. I'm broken, it's just going to stay that way. So then the future itself doesn't seem like the past is already a problem, that we've turned it into the present. We're wrestling with all of that. We're doing that sort of tiger eating its own tail kind of thing. And the future doesn't seem all that much better. And then we pour more pressure on ourselves. Oh my gosh, I'm fearing for the future. So suddenly we start pouring more on there. So then we're certainly not connected with the present. We're making up stories about the future. And honestly, we're making up stories about the past and what it means. Because that's already gone. Right? Its own context is gone, all those things. And so suddenly, the one thing we're not dealing with is reality.
Yeah. Yeah. If we can't be present here right now in what's actually happening without feeding from the past or worrying about the future, we're missing out on our complete life.
Yeah.
Because right here, right now is where we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it ties into so many things that we talk about. And last week we were talking about more or less the idea of choosing where you spend your time and what has most value. And by doing that, you don't have to ask yourself the question, or you don't have to say, I don't have time for that, as if something's being taken from you. You're choosing that. I'm choosing to have time for this, and that means I may not have time for that. Mm-hmm. It's a similar thing. I'm choosing some level from a place of presence to let the past be the past, be open to what here's in the present, not worry so much about the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So being able to discern when the past has crept into right now. So important, right? So these terms that we use, or the stories that we use that really aren't beneficial or real for us, like going back to I'm broken,
mm-hmm.
they're costing us way too much. Yeah. We are not getting any return on our investment of, any positive return on our investment of
mm-hmm.
I'm broken.
Yeah.
We don't want to use these words. We don't want to use these terms to describe ourselves.
No, because like we were talking about last week, the brain runs with that, assigns meaning to that, and when that's connected to external messaging about those things, it becomes so ubiquitous around us all the time that we start seeing that as reality, and then we wonder why we're miserable, and why we feel trapped, and why we feel like we have to just keep grinding, or we have to just give up, rather than just stepping back and going, "Ooh, I'm okay," right? Get a T-shirt. If you need
a T-shirt.
One.
Yes.
I know where you can get one for $7, everybody, right? Even if it's just you're looking in the mirror going, "Oh, I'm okay."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What if we change that, right? To like, okay, when we're experiencing these stories of limit or damage or those, we shifted that to I'm okay right now.
Yeah.
I'm okay right now. And right now reminds the brain, we're talking about right now, because that's where we are.
Exactly.
As we move forward into the future, right now will be applicable to that moment.
Yeah.
But using those words to help us be right here, right now.
And then that actively, intentionally engages us in experiencing being okay, even with the feelings that are not pleasant. Mm-hmm. I'm sad about this, or I'm lonely, or this, and I'm okay right now. Because that's the truth. Again, short of a legitimate emergency situation. Majority of the time we're okay.
Yes, most of the time we are okay. And if the recognizing of the emotion is really important to do, depending, right? Like certainly if we've got an awareness that emotions just move in and through, and they move in and through, we don't have to be, so focused that we've got to name all of those either. Right.
Sure.
Because that'll slow things down too. Right. So sometimes we can have that realization that, yep, emotions are moving through me. Holy moly, and I'm okay. Right. So that there's however sort of works and wherever we're at, making sure that I'm okay.
Yeah.
Is a part of the mix.
Well, and when we talk about softening, right? Breathing into and getting grounded in the belly. That's what that process does, right? It helps us make that shift. And again, pitch. That's what our every second Saturday of the month is what we introduce you to, is that process of doing that. Yeah. And so I think of, instead of the broken, the growth thing, taking the trees. I don't remember who it was. Might have been Wayne Dyer, who once talked about, how palm trees are some of the strongest trees on the planet, in part because they're super flexible and they're in areas where there's lots of wind, lots of storm, but they have tons of roots. Their root system is very deep, and they interconnect it with other trees. And so they can withstand it. So they're strength, and they're oftentimes the trees that are left standing after a big storm because of their flexibility and their ability to move with the storm. And they're grounded, rooted deeply. For me, what comes up is like when we're grounded in the belly, our flexibility comes from the flow state, right? That breathing, that presence moment. And the storm does what a storm does.
Mm-hmm.
The tree's okay.
Yeah. And that's the part too. I have to remind folks quite a bit around the repetition of
Yes.
the practice.
Yeah.
Right? We can't go into like the storm and okay, what was that practice again?
Yeah.
Zoom, 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 zoom. It's not working.
Let me
right?
get my roots down.
Right, right, because we're already storming, right? We didn't plant the trees during the storm.
They planted a while ago.
Right, they've been in it.
They've been
right?
growing for a while. Yeah.
So they've practiced this
Mm-hmm.
for a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
And so we want to practice that softening, getting into the belly, centering, getting into our seat and grounding when things are calm.
Yeah.
Right? We want to make this. I always talk about brushing your teeth every day. We don't ever stop and go, "Oh, well, they're clean."
Yeah. You pay your bills every month.
Yeah. So same thing. That practice, we want that to occur when we're feeling nice and calm.
Mm-hmm.
And with repetition, when the storm hits, our body's just going to know.
Yeah.
And it'll be that much easier to weather that, to adapt, to know that we're okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what those trees do when they grow. That's the equivalent, right? They're growing, those roots grow deeper. That's what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. We got it. We're wired for it,
We are.
right? We don't need to worry about whether or not we're capable. We don't need to wonder if
Yeah.
we're going to get it perfect. We don't need to do any of that because the body's wired for it. And if we're walking around and we've got, some sense of awareness about ourselves, we're going to be able to do this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're a living thing, not an object that can be broken.
Mm-hmm.
We're a living thing that can be at various times healthier than other times, can experience growth, is going to experience decline.
Well, it's like the seasons, right?
Uh-huh.
Think about it's like the seasons. We were talking last week about, okay, we have a little bit more light now. So we're doing different things, right? And so even throughout our lives, we're going to have some times where we just need to buckle down and maybe, grow in ways that don't necessarily look to be growing.
Right.
But we're preparing for the next stage or season.
Next season. Yeah.
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 Right.
It's about growth, not utility.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because an object is about utility.
Mm-hmm.
A living thing is about growth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So the pacing can look different at different times. Some part of the growth can be slowing down.
Mm-hmm.
Other times the growth can be speeding up, learning particular things.
Yep.
So we don't need to necessarily get caught up in, the specific shoulds of growing.
Yeah.
Right? Like the
Right.
things that, I'm not motivated, so I must not be growing.
Right. I should be stronger right now because this season is a season of strength, supposed to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Like those sorts of shoulds. If we allow for growth, we're going to be growing. And if we're paying attention to fueling or to resting or to, if we're paying attention, then the choices that we might make are going to be for our own long-term or, midterm growth.
Right.
Too.
Right. Yeah. And that can look like not having to do something to make that happen.
Absolutely. And that's the other part. Like if we sometimes like goals, we get really caught up and we need goals or natural motivation to think or experience ourselves as growing.
Mm-hmm.
That's not really the growing that we're talking about. Certainly that could be part of the picture, but really sometimes growing is resting.
Yeah. Yeah. When I talk with people who are writing or interested in writing, and they'll say, "Oh, I didn't do any writing. I've been wasting my time." So, are you sure about that? Because sometimes resting, sitting with, contemplating could be part of the writing process. What would it be like if you considered that to be part of the writing process? And then you go, "Oh, well, yeah, you have to let things sit sometimes. You have to let creativity rebuild up. You have to be recharged. You have to give time for new ideas to come in or to look back at what you wrote and go, yeah, that part doesn't work. Or, when we look at that as something that isn't about results,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
but
Productivity.
productivity,
Yeah.
we're in a much better spot because that's actually how we actually are.
Outcome focused.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Ooh, good stuff, Tawny.
Mm-hmm.
Mic drop
Yes.
7 minutes in, and we still got another 18, 19 minutes.
I was going to pack up and get out of here.
I know,
I
we
thought
could've
my
just made it
job's
super
done.
Short. Yeah, could have just played music, right? Or had Eric just talk the rest of it or whatever.
We could have.
Yeah,
What would that have been like? He would have done a great job.
Yeah, he would have.
Mhm.
So anyway, well, thank you. Hopefully for all of you, that was helpful. That was really good, Tawny. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for all
was
that.
awesome.
Yep. All that out of a T-shirt that I bought for $7.
I know. So it worked.
It did work.
Yeah.
It did
mhm.
work. Now I'm questioning whether I ever want to wear it again.
You'll always think of me every time you
Every
wear
time.
it. Every
Why
time.
am I advertising that I'm okay? Anyway, thanks to all of you. Hopefully all of you are okay. Actually, guess what? You can be.
Yep.
Join us next week for another episode of Breaking Up with Our BS, where we will hit some other source of these BS stories.
We will.
And remember to take advantage of all the different options we have for you to be engaging with this. And please join us for our workshops once a month. Check out Tawny's 6-week self-mastery course. Interact with us at our Facebook page. We'd love to hear from you. Love to help you out as best we can. Until next week, I am JDK Winnikin.
And I am Tawny Santabria.
We will see you later.
Mm-hmm.
Be a palm tree.
How you all feel tonight?
Stop. I can't take it anymore.
Oh, I do the live ones too. Yes, I know. I saw your act in the theater. You're really quite good. Quite a certain harmful habit.
Stop it now, I mean it.
I don't think he felt anything.